First, I'm going to talk about activity-based scheduling, then introduce the concepts of Flowline and how it can be used during pre-construction and during construction. And finally, we'll discuss the difference between 4D animations and true 4D construction simulation. I'm going to also go back and forth between slides and the software itself, so I'll be switching back and forth during the course. So we were thinking about polling the audience about how often pre-construction schedules are used on site by the superintendent, but we know the answer, and based on the discussions with many of our clients, typically they don't necessarily use the same schedule during construction that they create during pre-construction. Typically, the schedule created during pre-construction is for selling the project, and eventually it just becomes wallpaper in the trailer. Activity-based schedules are created based on subjective information, and they can become complex pretty fast because of the number of activities and links that you put into an activity-based schedule. It's the industry standard, however, but it's still not used to control the project. Gantt charts are difficult to use in the field for monitoring construction. Typically, the schedule is updated once a month to record what happened in the past, as opposed to help you forecast where problems might occur in the future. It can't really show you efficiently starts and stops. It can't really show you impact of delays. So site monitoring becomes pretty hard, and you don't necessarily know every single day that the project is under control or if it's out of control. So Flowline is actually not something that is new. It's being used on building the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building was built in just a little over 1 year. The builders had to manage thousands of people on a very tight site. They basically drew Flowline on a paper with pencil. It helped them ensure continuous flow and efficiently utilize the tight site and locations during construction. So how did they do it? What was the concept behind it? As we said earlier, Gantt charts are very useful. They're easy to read. However, they're pretty hard to manipulate. They show tasks, activities as function of time. They can be pretty informative, but they're not showing a lot of information that's critical to the success of a construction project. They don't show locations. For example, they show locations only in the name of the task if you include it in there, or if you create your own location breakdown structure coding system and you include it as a field in your Gantt chart schedule. It doesn't show continuity of tasks, does not allow you to visualize dependencies, and optimize the movement of crews. Using Flowline, however, you'll be able to see all that in just one single view. On the top, it shows a calendar, and on the left side, it shows a location. So in this case, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 floors. And then you can see how crews pass through these locations, with just represented by a simple line. It's easy to see where certain crews are at what point in time. It's easy to see how far they are apart in terms of locations. And you can also see time and location lag between two locations and two crews very, very easily. You can also use this view to analyze productivity and see what areas of the project are being utilized and what areas of the project are being underutilized. The Flowline view is also it also can be displayed in a Gantt chart view. So the two are compatible. It's not just that you're working in a Flowline view or in a Gantt chart view. You can work in both at the same time. But as you can see, the number of activities that you have to manipulate in a Flowline view are a lot less compared to what you have in the Gantt chart view. In a Gantt chart view, for every single location in an activity-based schedule, you'd have to create a task, an activity. In this case, you have plaster plastering for drywall on the first floor, second floor, etc., up to the 8th floor. Every single activity of drywall for each location is a different bar in the Gantt chart view. In the Flowline view, however, you only have one line that represents one crew, the drywall crew, across several locations. So you have, instead of 8 tasks, you only have one that you will need to manipulate and then define. You also, with this technology, reduce the number of links that you embed into the program, into the schedule, because the location sequence, the location logic, is automatically generated by control, by the Flowline view. The continuity of locations is ensured by having a continuous line here without any break in the line, and the logic is automatically handled by the program. So you only need to take care of predecessor and successor activities, the predecessor and successor links, which reduces the number of links by an order of magnitude and helps you manipulate and resequence the schedule as many times as you need to during the pre-construction process. So line of balance is really, it means the ability to graphically display tasks and locations in one simple view, as opposed to just an activity-based schedule where you don't have locations represented automatically. And having location added as an additional dimension provides you a lot of benefit. It increases the power of control for the planner, creates a deeper understanding of the relationship between tasks, and the planner can see what's going on in the schedule at a glance rather than having to spend a lot of time investigating multiple pages of printouts. You can also then start using the Flowline schedule to start optimizing the way you use locations and optimize the way crews progress through different locations in the project. When you look at a Gantt chart schedule and we just take these 3 activities, transform them into Flowline, you can see that the task in the middle has a lower productivity and a slower utilization of locations than the 2 activities, the beginning and the end. By synchronizing the production rate and utilizing locations at the same pace, our customers experienced approximately 10% compression of the schedule. With this, you can also increase the level of detail of the schedule because you can include more information in the schedule without actually increasing risk. So by using this additional dimension, locations together with productivity, you have the ability to optimize the schedule and compress it by at least 10% on an average basis. So let me show you how this actually works inside control. Let me just switch to control quickly. And when I look at control first, I can create locations. I don't necessarily need to start with a model. I can just start with my control software and create 10 floors, 10 locations. So now I have 10 floors here, and I can start adding tasks by just drawing lines in the software. So I can draw a line for a rebar crew. I can draw another line for a formwork crew, and I can draw a third line for a concrete crew. And what I just did with these 3 clicks, I actually created 30 tasks with the location logic automatically included in my Gantt chart view. Now I can start adding my trade logic, and I can go to another view, in this case just a per chart, where I can add a dependency between task 1 and 2. So rebar comes before formwork, and formwork comes before concrete. And now I just added another 30 links, so altogether I've got 60 links in here with the location logic and the trade logic automatically added in. Now what happens if, let's say I would like to reverse or reorder the locations for task 3. Let's say in this case it could be a finishes task, and I would like to finish the building from top down, or build the curtain wall from top down. I can just reverse the location logic and start with location 10 from 10th floor and come down to the first floor. And I just reverse the locations. I've got all my links updated, and I have a new schedule, a new sequence automatically created. This task in a Gantt chart scheduling program probably would take you approximately 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes to relink every single line item and reassign the links inside the software. I can also start adding in links and logic across locations. So, for example, I can define a location lag for the rebar crew and say that rebar cannot start on the second floor until I finish pouring concrete on my first floor. And I can add in a logic link across locations, define basically a location lag of one location. I can also add in buffers if I need time to wait for curing curing the concrete. And by adding in that logic, I don't only add in that logic on one floor, but it automatically replicates on all the floors. So if I go back to my Gantt chart view, you can see a complex web of links that would have taken me quite a long time, quite a few minutes to develop in a Gantt chart view, but it took me only a few clicks to develop inside Control. So let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation and start discussing how the schedule could be used during pre-construction. Once you start creating a schedule inside Control and you get rid of the complex web of links and you have the ability to just look at a schedule at a glance, you'll be able to start optimizing the schedule using locations. In Gantt chart, in a Primavera schedule or in a Microsoft project schedule, every schedule looks good at first glance. You don't really see where the problems are, and you don't really see what kind of problems you need to resolve or where you have the ability to optimize the schedule itself. You have to have a pretty trained eye to see those problems at the first glance, and if you're not an experienced planner, it will take a couple of hours maybe to go through a lot of pages and figure out where the problems are. So let me give you a 5-second analysis of a Gantt chart schedule in Flowline. Basically, when you look at the schedule, this is what looks like pickup sticks, as Holly explained before, but it really shows you a lot of information. You can see that you've got multiple starts at several dates. You've got different crews colliding at the same location. You've got productivity of crews faster than the preceding task here. So for example, if the line, a yellow line here is framing, you've got drywall coming up here. The drywall guys have a higher productivity or a faster productivity. You can see that easily drywall cannot be installed here because you don't have framing finished yet. And you can see that very quickly on a Flowline schedule without drilling into the details. You can start optimizing the schedule also by identifying the areas that are underutilized and making sure that your production rate and the various crews are progressing through the site, through the construction zones at a parallel pace, at a similar pace itself. When the schedule is linked to a model, you'll be able to analyze constructability, and as I said earlier, if the framing's not finished yet, but you're ready to build the drywall, you have a problem, and that's very easy to visualize in different views of the model and the schedule itself as well. Once you have the schedule and you started defining the optimum productivity, you can further optimize the schedule by calculating accurate durations using quantity, production rate, and location from a model. So by using production rates, you're not just guessing the durations for different activities and different tasks in your Flowline schedule. You're actually using information from the site, from the design, that helps you drive resource loading and helps you drive durations for the schedule itself. The quantity in this case doesn't necessarily have to be the quantity of drywall or the quantity of concrete that you need to install. It could be as simple as just man hours that you discuss with your subcontractors and put in the man hours estimated by the subcontractor with the production rate across different locations, which will help you track the schedule more accurately, which I'm going to talk about in a second. If you have a takeoff generated by a product such as Vico Office, you can then use that takeoff to plug in the numbers, the quantities, the result of the takeoff into your schedule and define those accurate durations. And I'm going to show you how that works inside Control, but it's pretty easy because you basically just copy-paste quantities from an Excel spreadsheet or from a model into Control. Once you have the schedule accurately calculated based on quantities and production rates, you can easily resource load your schedule and generate a resource graph, level your resources, make sure that you don't have peaks and valleys for different trades. You can also cost load the schedule, which will help you generate a cash flow of the project. And you can also show the critical path using the per chart view or just using any of the traditional views that that you might be used to in other programs. So in order to bring in quantities to this schedule, if I look at the bills of quantities of this schedule, you can see that I don't have any quantities associated with any of the tasks here. And I can add quantities by copy-pasting, in this case, man hours from a Excel spreadsheet into my Control schedule. You can see that I broke down the locations, and I've got all 3 tasks listed here in my Excel spreadsheet. When I copy these quantities over to my Control spreadsheet, I can start assigning the man-hour information to the various activities. So I can assign task 1 quantities to task 1, man-hours for the second task, and then man-hours for the third task. And as I do that, you will see that the durations calculated in my schedule are automatically updated. And now instead of just thin lines, I have thicker lines. If I click on any of these lines, it will tell me the hourly estimate for that particular task. It will show me the production rate. In this case, we've got 8 hours in a shift. And this information, the quantity information, can be also as simple as square footages. So if you know the floor plates and the size of the floor plate, you can start using that as the initial information to start manipulating your schedule. And if, for example, the design changes and you want to edit some of these quantities, you can come in and edit them on the fly. If the podium gets bigger and we will need more time, you can just easily enter 80 hours for that particular task. And as I do that, the line automatically updates and shows me the impact of that new duration based on a new quantity on the overall schedule, and I can see where my date is. If you need to meet a date and you want to match, let's say, the beginning of November as a target date, you can grab the line, or let's say beginning of October. You can grab the line, you can grab this activity, and when you release your cursor, Control will automatically tell you how you need to increase your crew size to 3 in order to meet that new deadline. You can also decide that your production factor is different because you have a more skilled crew, or your consumption is different because you have maybe less material. But by doing that, Control, again, automatically changes the relationship between tasks, updates the schedule, and brings in the other tasks to meet the project schedule that you'd like to meet. So optimizing the schedule is pretty simple because you always have real-time, real feedback from Control about your resource usage, about your production rates, and about your flow of construction. So you can have the nicest and the best schedule in the world. If the field guys don't buy into it, and if the superintendent doesn't use it, it's an effort that's wasted. So Control has to be a tool that can be used by the superintendent efficiently to monitor and track the progress of construction. When you look at a traditional Gantt chart and you start tracking a project, in this particular case, we're tracking the project just typically as we do with representing where we are with this red line in this particular date. We're a little bit behind on certain tasks. We're a little bit ahead on other tasks. So when you look at it in Gantt chart, you'd say probably we're doing generally okay. There are no huge delays, and you're going to sit back and just work with the team. In Control, what you really do is you need to start monitoring the project at a higher frequency and at a higher level of detail. And you start monitoring the project not just based on start and end dates, but also based on locations, and see when locations are completed and when locations are, for example, ongoing or late. And if a location is delayed, you're going to automatically get a red alert dot on that location and see where problems might happen in the future. So a superintendent would walk the site every Friday with a PE and would have a simple control chart in his hand, printed out. And in that control chart, you'd see the various activities on the bottom, and you'd see the locations on the left side. As they walk the site, they will be able to define what locations are completed, and those are going to turn green automatically. What locations are a little bit behind or ongoing, and Control will automatically highlight the locations that will have a late start, that will have an impact because of the delays that you just entered into the system on previous locations. So instead of tracking % complete, you're really just looking at whether a location is completed or not completed. And this is how a lot of superintendents actually track the project. And typically they would have a whiteboard where they have these locations in a similar way drawn up, or they might have a sheet of paper where they track locations displayed on an Excel spreadsheet, or they might just do it in their head. So basically what I was explaining was that every Friday the superintendent could walk the site with a PE, send out this chart after they look at different locations and the completion of those locations to the subcontractors on Friday evening. So by the time they come back on on Monday morning to the subcontractor meeting, they will have answers to all the red cells, and they will have a plan for making sure that these delays, these problems, are going to be avoided in the actual construction. So instead of spending 2 hours on discussing who's doing what right now, you spend a lot more time on discussing what the problems are and what kind of action needs to be taken in order to prevent those problems from happening. And when I went to the next slide, I just explained that you don't only have the ability to show those delays inside a control chart, but control actually keeps track of 3 schedules at the same time: the actual, the forecast, and the plan. And when we start looking at different crews, in this case, if we say task 1 is layout, task 2 is drywall, task 3 is, let's say, painting, you can see how these crews progress compared to the plan schedule very easily, because it's superimposed on top of the actual, because the actual schedule is superimposed on top of the plan. And when you get to a certain point, you generally say that we're a little bit behind on this task. Actually, we finished ahead of time on this task. We're a little bit behind on our framing tasks, and we're on time on our drywall task. So when you look at this progress inside a Gantt chart view, you'd say generally we're doing okay. However, with the forecast, you'll be able to see where problems might occur in the future based on the production rate and the trends that you're tracking. You'll be able to see that there is a conflict here between the drywall guys and the painters, and they will have to demobilize and mobilize again, and basically it will cause a cascade of delays in the project. And you see this 2-3 weeks before it actually happens, as opposed to putting out fires the same day when they happen. Control also helps you forecast these problems by showing you various alarm dots, problems that might occur in the future. You can click on any of these dots and log the reason for the delay. For litigation purposes, every single delay can be logged in the same environment, and it can be retrieved and printed out later. So if you look at this inside control, I'm just going to open up an example project. You can see that if I switch to my control chart and I switch to planning mode, some activities have been completed, some of them are delayed, and we've been pretty much lagging behind on this project. You can see that all the finishes activities are red. So when I go back to my control chart, you'll see control view. You'll see the dotted line representing the actual progress, the dashed line representing the forecast, and when I move with my cursor over the different alarm dots, I can check and log the cause and say whether it was a weather-related problem or we just had a drunken crew on site that didn't complete the work on time. You don't necessarily have to look at the schedule always as a set of pickup sticks. You can easily filter out different views for only structure, for only the interior activities. So you can set up your own scheduling views and make sure that you filter the views only to the information that you're interested in. And actually, when we were working with a client of ours, they were asked by an owner to generate a Flowline schedule in just a week, and they have never ever seen Flowline before. On Monday, they downloaded the interactive training guides from our website. On Tuesday and Wednesday, they converted the existing Gantt chart schedule into Flowline. On Thursday, they optimized the schedule, and on Friday, they were ready with the schedule. So by using control, you can easily start creating a schedule by filtering views and don't necessarily look at the entire project at the same time. But when you want to display all the project activities at the same time, it's pretty easy to just switch back and show the project at a glance and show the progress to the owner at a glance and look at where the problems might occur. One project that we worked on recently is a office and lab building in Finland where we helped the general contractor optimize their production using a 5D model. So they used actual quantities to optimize the construction of this 700,000 square feet office and lab building. We helped them generate a schedule for approximately 1,000 different locations. So they were tracking the project at a very granular level. Every single activity was driven based on the information from the model and helped them complete the project ahead of schedule and facilitate a faster moving time. So once you have this schedule, you also would like to be able to see and visualize the construction sequence in 4D or in an animation. And the conventional 4D process starts with the design documents. You link the design documents to the 3D model or create the 3D model based on the design documents. You link it with a schedule that's created based on just historical experience, so it's not necessarily more accurate than any schedule, and you create a movie file. So essentially what you do is you're just making a schedule that's not very accurate, even, you know, you make it nicer and easier to communicate, but the information in it might not be as accurate as you'd like it to be. So the true 4D process starts with the design documents and the BIM model, but then you go to a quantity takeoff, and from the quantity takeoff you generate your location-based schedule and then create the 4D construction optimization. And then that if optimized 4D model looks exactly the same like you would have in a movie, but the difference is that you have actual location, quantity, resource information, and production rate information behind it. So whenever you make a change in the design or wherever you make a change in the sequence, you will be able to update the 4D construction simulation automatically. So it creates an environment that's a lot easier to use for resequencing or exploring what-if scenarios, and it also becomes a tool that you can use on site in the trailer, as opposed to just create a nice marketing animation at the beginning of the project and then never update it again during the course of the construction. So in summary, model-based scheduling provides you with the ability to optimize a schedule during planning. It provides you with an environment where you can pass information from pre-construction to operations or the field easily. It helps you forecast where risks are, where you're going to have problems in the project, and it helps you manage cost and cash flow. Our clients experience on a typical project 10% schedule compression using control, and eventually it facilitates faster occupancy for your clients. So at this point, I would like to give back the microphone to Holly and open up the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Victor. At this point, I just ask the audience if you have any more questions of Victor to go ahead and write them in the question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. As you're typing, I'm just going to let you know that we're making a big swing through Chicago. First at Northwestern University, where we're teaching a course on IPD, then at the AACEI conference, and then Ghaffari is speaking at the McGraw-Hill Collaborative BIM conference in Chicago, and then of course we're heading to Dallas, Texas at the end of May for the AGC BIM forum. We certainly hope a lot of you can join us for that. You know, we've been going through the BIM 101 series, and of course now we're on some advanced coursework with BIM 401. But if you'd like to go back through the archives of the Fridays with Vico webinars, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen that there are many, many case studies in there. So please do go back and look at our customer case studies and see how other GCs and owners are using the software to their best advantage. I just wanted to remind you, we do more than just Fridays with Vicos. We have Vico on Twitter, the Vico Virtual Construction Comics, and the Vico user group on LinkedIn. Please feel free to join us on any of these other channels, and you can see what we're up to. If you like Fridays with Vicos, I think you'll love the other channels because we get to be a little more funny on those. Now let's open it up for questions and answers. The first question came in right away, and Victor, I'm trying to think, it must have been the second or third slide. And it comes from Randy, and he asked the question, can an existing SureTrack or P3 file be converted into a Flowline-based schedule?
Yes, it can. However, it's not a you know, some of the information in P3 or SureTrack is not available that you need in Control, such as the location information. So you can bring in the activities, but you would need to add in the location information manually to be able to use Control to its full potential. But typically the workflow that we recommend is that you start in Control, and then Control can export into P3, it can export into P6, and can export into Microsoft Project. So you start in Control, and then you export if you contractually, for example, obligated to bring or provide a Gantt chart schedule, a P6 or P3 schedule to your owner.
And one additional comment, I'm sure many of you are aware that both SureTrack and P3 are being phased out. They will no longer be supported. So many of you will be looking at switching to P6 as one option. This, I think, would be a great time to have your company take a good look at Vico Control, because you're going to be learning a new program anyway, so you want to have an opportunity to see how the Flowline scheduling system could improve your ability to perform on projects and, of course, to decrease your schedule risk.
And further to that point, as Victor said, the GC in Denver was able to pick it up within a week and deliver a complete schedule. So it's not that difficult to learn and to utilize. Randy comes back with a question, Victor, and I believe this is just part of the demonstration of Control. If a subcontractor comes back and changes crew size from 3 to 5, how will the change be made in the program?
Yeah, that's very easy, because crew sizes and resources are also part of the actual attributes for a task inside Control. So you can change that, and by changing the crew size, you will increase the productivity, and you will see the immediate duration, the new duration that's calculated based on the new crew size. You can also create what's called control plans for how you'd like to mitigate some of the problems that are forecasted in the control schedule, and you can do that by increasing the crew size and then do a couple of what-if scenarios, see what happens if you increase it to 2, increase it to 3, or increase it to 5.
Great. Kyle has a question for you, Victor. Do you have training classes on how to utilize all that Control has to offer?
Yes, we do, and I suggest you start first with the interactive training guides that are free to download from our website. And once you go through the interactive training guides, then we have different classes for advanced and expert levels, and you can basically contact us for additional training.
Nikki asks a repeat question. Is there any way that we can use Primavera in the Vico schedule? we'll just head on to Dylan's question. Can this schedule control chart be summarized into a cumulative progress S-curve where we have early, late, planned, and actual for the project as a whole?
Yes, you can. We have a earned value analysis view of the project where you can superimpose exactly those metrics and use it together with the model.
Here's a follow-up question from Kyle. How does the matrix for updating progress affect the schedule if the task is not entirely completed? Let's say it's at 60% complete. How does that affect the schedule, or can you tell that it is only at 60%?
You can tell that it's only at 60%. You can break down the task to its quantities if you'd like, and you can actually define the percent complete based on quantities if you wish, if you track the project at that level of detail. But you can definitely do that. You can also suspend tasks, so you can also suspend completion of a task if there's a break in the process. You can define a percent complete without any problems inside software too.
Here's a question from Michael. I'm already trying to figure out how to set up this statistical test in my head. Can you create a preset Flowline template based on generic building types or by volume? Or do you find that projects vary too greatly benchmark?
That's a very good question. You can actually create those templates, yes. You can capture, so first of all, you can capture inside the Vico 5D environment and standardize all the tasks and their production rates and or an assumption on crew sizes. And that will help you generate a schedule automatically based on just inserting the design or linking it to the design BIM model. Second, you can also create control templates, and in those control templates you can pre-assemble logic for different trades that you can bring in and apply in your schedule. So by using these two in combination, you can first of all calculate the durations based on a standardized task list and a standardized list of production rates, and then apply a logic that you pre-assembled and standardized in a control template.
Thanks, Victor.
I'd like to just add one point that is relevant. For those of you who are considering starting out in 5D, we have developed a data set that allows you to immediately use a BIM model and connect it to the quantity takeoff and tasks that allow you to do the 4D, 5D cycles. So for any of you who may not have a data set to start with and would like to learn more about the pre-configured Vico data set for 4 and 5D, please contact your sales rep. We'll be happy to help you with that.
Thanks, Don. Victor, here's a question. Which software or system do you think combines this schedule type best for an animation? And I know we didn't want to show it because we wanted to keep the course educational in nature, but Victor, could you talk about the 5D presenter?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a viewer that combines the schedule, the actual model of the building in one single view. And the difference, as I mentioned earlier, is that it's not just a schedule that was created based on historical assumptions, but it's a schedule that's resource loaded. It was created based on locations, quantities, and production rates, and then helps you animate the actual construction sequence in real time. So Vico has a solution for that, and we think it's best in the market because it represents real information as opposed to information that is not necessarily as accurate as it would be in control.
Thanks, Victor. Does control recognize BIM item coding like uniformat? Can it be altered?
Yeah, you can use your own coding structure. It can be used with uniformat. It can have, you can use it with CSI, and you can have your own task coding structure if you wanted to.
Here's a question from Justin. He asks, does Revit support this software?
It will support it through Vico Office, which has been released just recently. And Vico Office takes out the quantities from a Revit model that you will be able to plug in into the control environment for accurate scheduling.
Here's a question from Sneha. Can you use activity codes for locations?
Locations have their own codes or their own naming system inside Office, so you don't necessarily use an activity code for a location. But you can capture some kind of a location information in the activity code if you'd like, and use the two together that way.
Okay. Can you further define the location within control? A lot of schedules are built using a location code. Interesting that Randy came right after Neha's question.
Yeah, the location code is basically a designation for an area inside the Primavera schedule, and you might have a separate column for it inside Primavera. In Control, you don't have the equivalent of that column because locations are part of the definition of the activity or of the task. So it's handled slightly differently. Primavera doesn't know that you actually refer to a location by using a location code. It only you know it, but the software doesn't really know. It just knows that it's another number. As opposed to Control, which understands the sequence of locations and understands the way locations are broken down for the project. So you can use those codes in your location breakdown structure inside Control, but it's not necessarily a one-to-one or an automatic transition from a location code to Control because Primavera doesn't know it's a location code, only you know it.
Okay. Here's a question from Chris. Is the schedule information bidirectional between P6 and Vico? In other words, as you update the control info, can I push that info to P6?
Definitely, yes. So, and actually that's the recommended workflow. You update and make changes in Control, and then you push those out into P6. And we have a direct link to P6 that basically carries over not only start and end dates, but also resource information, cost information, and quantity information if available.
Victor, here's a question for you. How do you incorporate cost information to each task in Vico Control?
Yeah, there's just another field for the resources. So when I added the quantities, when I added those 40-hour estimates, it has a cost field. So every single quantity has a cost field with it that you can add and enter. And you can bring that in from an estimate manually, or you can bring that in from our 5D Vico software suite that directly connects with Control.
Here's a question from Justin. Does Control offer comparison reports on variance between approved schedules and schedules being submitted?
Yeah, you can basically view a comparison between a actual plan and the actual schedule and the plan schedule. You can also view comparisons between a schedule that you create for controlling the job as opposed to just forecasting it.
Here's a question from Barry. I'm going to direct it over to Don. What is the entry-level cost for the first license of Control to replace P3 or SureTrack?
The entry-level license is $1,895. That's a single user license. You can upgrade that to floating. I believe it would be $2,400 upgraded to floating, although I'm doing that from memory, so it's a little dangerous. And that is for a planning license. For a complete license of all the functionality Victor showed you today, the single user cost is $28.95. And we call that license the plan and control license because it allows you to perform all the schedule creation and analysis, and then also to do the production control, the control charts, and all of the subsequent to construction analysis of the remaining time on the schedule and what to do about it, etc. So there's two levels of licensing, if you will. Just remember, roughly $2,000 and roughly $3,000 is the entry-level costs.
And Randy has a follow-up question. When will Control 2009 be available?
It is available. The beta on that slide you saw was a mistake. It's a slide that we have not remembered to update. Control 2009 is released.
Thanks. Nikki has a question. Do you have any training tutorials, and where can I find it? Nikki, you can head right over to our website. Under the Resources tab, we have some of the interactive training guides. And then under the Products tab, we have the demos, little demo movies, about 10 minutes for all of the products.
Yeah, just one additional point. Victor and I will be working with Holly to announce over the next few weeks an interactive online training system for all Vico products. And you will be able to sign up for individual courses, run through the course at your own pace, download the demo and other materials to help you learn the product, and then take a certification test at the end. So Vico will be putting that up in the next few weeks. We look forward to both your usage of it as well as your feedback on it.
Exactly. Here's a question from Kyle. Do you need to use Vico Office to get your quantities and then plug those quantities into Control? Or can you use other software such as Innovia and then import their quantities to still use Control?
The interface with other software would be through an Excel spreadsheet. So if you can export quantities into an Excel spreadsheet, then you can bring them into Control. And you can create a manual takeoff. That way you can export quantities from any other software into an Excel spreadsheet, then you can bring them into Control.
Don, here's a question from Carmen. She asks, what is the cost of the modeling license to integrate with the Control module?
Well, there's quite a few options available today. If you are a user of Revit, Tekla, or ArchiCAD, or Constructor, then you already have a modeling license. Those licenses generally run, I think, for as little as $3,000 up to probably $5,000 or $6,000, depending on which one you pick and which parts you get with it. Then I think that would be all you need. In addition to Control and some Vico Office software, you would need the Vico Office client and what we call the LBS Manager.
There's another question from Kyle. Does your 5D animation software come with Control, or is that separate?
It actually is separate. It is part of the Vico Office package. So today, it actually is a free product. In the older software that we call Constructor and Constructor Pro, that's the 5D presenter software. That's actually a free product. And then there will be a new animation product for Vico Office.
And here's what looks to be the last question from Paul. What about ODBC links in the back end, like SQL?
All of Vico Office data is stored in a relational database, and you have full access to everything. So we both intend to link Vico Office to many other systems, as we already have with, for example, Primavera and MS Project and Revit and Tekla, ArchiCAD, etc. And we plan to continue extending those links, taking in, for example, the subcontractor systems like QuickPen and other subcontractor systems. And we encourage you also to link to Vico Office if you have a particular in-house requirement that is unique.
And the last question from Kyle, when should the Vico Office animation software come out?
Shortly. Please stay tuned to the Vico Office, to the Fridays with Vico. We'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks.
Great. And just a reminder to everyone, as you exit today's webinar, you will receive a quick survey. I think it's just 4 questions this week. And if you could answer those for us, that would greatly help us with our analysis of the program. And then also just a reminder, if you liked hearing our voices over the phone, you'll love seeing us in comics, you'll love hearing us on Twitter, and you'll love meeting us in the Vico user group on LinkedIn. So we invite you to join us in all those different channels. We thank you for taking time out of your Friday to join us, and we hope to see you back on May 15th for the conclusion of our BIM Master Classes series. It'll be BIM 501, that's model-based estimating. See you back Friday, May 15th. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.